Oh, hello, my friends. Hello, my life warriors, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Day In, Day Out podcast. Woo! Today on episode 252. I'm very lucky.
Wow.
Yes, she's surprised and wowed by it already. Susan Nicholas, how are you today? Oh, before I even go there, she's an author, speaker, podcast host, quantum healer, awaken humanity and consciousness. My God, how are you?
I'm well, thank you, Miwa. Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure, a joy to have you on the podcast today. Now, I have to ask. I was doing a little bit of research, looking at your LinkedIn, and I've got to say, you are well educated, but with that education came a lot of traveling. Wow. It's like,
yeah.
Couldn't you just do this all in one state?
Well, I trained as a surgeon, and it's very common for, I don't know about the UK, but in the US, it's very common for medical students to go to medical school in one state and do their residency and training in another state and work in another state. We just move all around. Like it's like in a 4-year thing. So we're always on the move. Yeah.
Look, this is the thing. Look, when it comes to sort of American medical sort of school and training and stuff like this, look, after watching Scrubs several times, I've got most probably a very skewed sort of like imagery in my head. I'm just saying.
Oh, that's funny.
Look, when you say surgeon, I'm like, okay. Like, unfortunately, one of the things what jumps into my head is the Todd, and that's when I swear to God, Todd, you know him. Do you know the Todd from Scrubs? No.
It's been a while. I think so. I watched it years and years and years ago. Okay. But yeah, I think so.
Yeah, just think about, he's a rather inappropriate fella, and that's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
So
yeah.
So how long were you training to, did you go through your whole training as being a surgeon?
Well, pretty much. So my journey really took me to not just in training as a surgeon, but I went into a fellowship training in cardiothoracic surgery. So I went into a fellowship training to do some very specialized surgery of the heart. And I think when I was at that stage of my training, which is like the final stages of medical training in the US, not everyone does a fellowship, but if you do a fellowship, it's in the final stages. I found myself, I would say, in a state of emptiness, like a soulful emptiness. And I believed me that journey to becoming a doctor, which is something that I wanted to do since I was a 10-year-old girl, would be very fulfilling for me. Like it would be what actualized me, put me in my purpose. I thought once I arrived at this place, I would feel happy, like just it all would come together, all the sacrifice, all the work would have been worth it.
Yeah.
And instead, I found myself profoundly sad, like a true deep hollowness in my own soul. And I didn't have language around it because on paper, it didn't make any sense. It seems like everything was right. But inside, everything was wrong. Like nothing was right. And I couldn't make sense of the outside versus what I was feeling on the inside. Yeah. And so I believed, honestly, Miwa, that was the beginning of what I consider my conscious awakening, where I knew that something drastic, something really had to change for me to go on living. I didn't know how I could be fulfilled if I had done all this work and it took me like my whole life to do it. Like it was everything. that if I had done all this work and checked all the boxes and got all my degrees and credentials, and my future was just waiting for me to fall into, that if that wasn't enough, then what could be enough? You know, what would fill the void? And so I felt that I had this very deep soulful void, and I did not know how to fill it. I didn't know how to fill it up.
Yeah.
And I thought that I had to, the only way to, I don't want to say get rid of the feeling, but to alleviate that feeling would be to die off of the planet.
Wow. That's a heavy place to be, because like this is the thing. When like, okay, there are, in my opinion, like there are a few like professions which are calling professions. Like basically your lawyers, your architects, your doctors / surgeons. It's like, yeah, you have to be like, okay, I'm invested from a very young age.
Right.
Like, because it's okay. Now, yeah, well, if it doesn't come down to sort of Nigerian parentage or like Indian parentage or Pakistani parentage, or like, yeah, like you are going to be a doctor. I don't want to be a doctor. You are going to be a doctor. It's,
yeah.
If you're doing it off your own back, it's like, yes, I had this calling to be.
Yeah.
For such a long time. So like, and plus that is not some easy road to sort of
no
like physically, emotionally, like, you know what I mean? Like the time commitments just alone. Like to go, like to see the mountain, you're right at the mountaintop and go, this isn't for me. And I
right.
Like having that, like, how did that come across to people you said that to, in like who basically support you along this journey for all this time?
Yeah. Okay. That's a question I haven't had in a while.
Aye.
I cannot say, meanwhile, that I know the answer to that. I know that when I decided to make the shift out of clinical medicine, many people were shocked. Many perhaps didn't understand, but there were a few that took me aside secretly and believed that I was brave, and said that they only wish they had been so brave when they were younger. And so I knew that I wasn't alone in those feelings. And I think when you commit so much time, money, resources, so much of yourself to something, to a career, everyone's invested, right? Your family's invested, your community is invested, you are invested. And it's very difficult to let it go, even if it's unfulfilling. And so many people will stay with it, even with that hollowness in the soul, with that emptiness, just because changing or shifting or pivoting feels so much more difficult, that they'll just suck it up and it'll literally eat them alive. You know, that it'll eat them inside out, from the inside out.
No, I hear that. No, because like this is the thing you mentioned just now, pivot. I think that's one of the greatest, like if you know when to pivot, it's a real great gift to have in life. Because there are too many people who are doing many a thing which makes them sad, makes them depressed.
Right. They're unhappy.
Absolutely.
I bet you've met one or more doctors who aren't happy, or lawyers or whatever. I mean, just because you've committed it doesn't mean that it is actualizing you or you're happy doing it.
Absolutely. No, true. Like this is the thing. I would rather have a well-balanced doctor than an overly happy one or an overly sad one. Hashtag just saying. like need you in the room. It's a wonderful day.
That's like, funny. Not too happy.
It's like balance.
Yeah.
Why people are going through this and they're not asking themselves these questions like, okay, is this the right move for me? Am I in the right place? They can easily get lost, I find, throughout their lives. And to simply go, yeah, you know what? have that sort of, well, bravery, but clarity, to have that moment of clarity to go, oh, wait, no.
Something's got to change. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, can I say this, meanwhile, that I think when we are very young, when we are children, the right questions are not asked of us. And I think it comes from our parents and their parents and their parents and their parents, right? There's this whole lineage of beliefs that, you come into this world and you're born and you have to survive it, right? It's about survival. It's about working to pay bills. And I think that I know that, let me put it this way. I was never asked as a child, not by anyone, to what it would be for me to do. What could I do that would make me happy? It wasn't about that. It was about what could you do that was responsible, that was practical, that you could earn a living, that you could support yourself, that you could get benefits, that you could pay your bills. So it was about that journey. And so it shouldn't be too surprising that many of us embark upon our careers with those things in mind, the top of mind. It's not about our fulfillment, about our joy, about our passions, about what inspires us. I mean, I think we are fortunate if in the pursuit of paying bills, we are inspired.
Yes.
We are fulfilled in whatever it is that brings home the bacon, that pays the rent. But many of us will just check in and out, show up just to get the paycheck. It's about survival. And I think that is what keeps humanity in despair, a melancholy, because we're not actualized or fulfilled in our lives. I mean, just imagine, Miwa, how magnificent every being is. I remember thinking how incredible, how miraculous it is that anybody's normal, that we have all of this stuff, you're born into this little body and full of potential and genius. And I would always wonder, how could not more things go wrong? There were so many steps, so many things, so many pieces of the puzzle that had to go in just right to make you, to make me, to make everyone. And so how could it be that we're born into all this magnificence, this potential, this genius, only to work to pay bills, only to survive the embodiment? And that's when I think I began to ask the big questions, who am I? Why am I here? What is this planet we're on? What is the purpose of all this stuff? And what am I to do here? What is it that actualizes me? And that question those questions I would say came from what many would call a dark night of the soul.
You know what? You say the dark night of the soul. I would say you actually took a moment and breathed, because what people tend to do, from what I've seen in our society, and I'm guilty of it myself, you hit the treadmill of work, life, and everything like that, and you're going.
Yeah. Yeah, I call it the hamster wheel. Yeah. It's like you're just going on the hamster wheel of life. Yeah,
absolutely. And while you keep on going, all of these things and all of these options come up throughout your life and everything like this. Some dark and wrong, some great, wonderful, and all of these things come up. But the time where you should stop and take a breath, look around and go, oh, that's for me. More times than not, when you're in your sort of mid-20s, when you're in your 30s and so forth and so on, and by the time as each decade goes along, you're getting a little bit more responsibilities and everything like this, along the way, you cannot, like these options get closed off to you because you are just going. One of the things about 2020, when the world shut down, everyone could take a collective breath at once. And it sort of was like, oh, a lot of people went, oh my God, what am I doing with my life?
Right.
And you know, with that awakening, a lot of changes come out of it. And I think a lot of change is still yet to come, you know?
Yeah, I agree.
You were quite fortunate where you went, okay, no, this isn't it. But, hey, but like with that, what was the sort of first step you took from like your life as a surgeon to like your journey now?
Well, let me just say it wasn't a straight path, because
Okay.
even at the time that I knew that something drastic had to change for me to feel actualized,
Yeah.
to go on living this life, I didn't know what those changes were. And I was still in the mindset of survival. I was still carrying what I believe meanwhile was the energy of poverty. You know, I came from a place of not enough, born into circumstances that were deprived in many ways. And so I believe that doing a profession like being a doctor would allow me to rise up out of poverty. And so what I didn't realize was I was pursuing all of my ambitions with this underneath everything, like this energy, these beliefs on the foundation of it. I didn't realize it was what was driving me to do these things was to escape poverty. And so when I get to these place, literally I traveled across the country, you know, to, you know, educated myself. I believed it was all about education and geography, about occupation. And so when I ticked all those boxes, what didn't get cleared up or didn't get, I would say, healed, was that energy, that foundational energy, those beliefs around poverty, around survival, around lack and scarcity. And so even though I knew something had to change, I still believed I had to first survive my embodiment. I have to survive, right? I have to have a job, I have to work. And I still didn't know how to get to the soul of me. I didn't know how to tend to the soul of me. It was still very much external, still on that hamster wheel of life.
Right.
And so
I was about to say, would you say that was because you didn't know yourself?
yeah. I think in a very simplistic terms, yes, I did not know myself. And I would say the lion's share of us, meanwhile, do not know ourselves.
Yeah.
We don't. We are motivated by many external variables. And I'm not suggesting scarcity, poverty, lack are not good motivators. They are motivators, but many of us are motivated by fear. We're motivated by survival. We're motivated by even insecurities, jealousies, even legacies of the past that don't serve us, but we feel like we have to live up to something. And very little, if any, introspection is done about, like, who are you?
Yeah.
What are you to bring to this life? Why are you here? Why are you on the earth? Could it be that all the billions and billions of embodied souls were all here just to work to survive the embodiment, just to work to pay bills? To me, that seems like a very useless existence. Like you exist only to survive the existence. And so it's like, okay, so I don't think many of us get to know ourselves. And I think that's part of the journey. I think we are born into these magnificent bodies and we catch a great severe case of amnesia. And we forget why we are here and why we came into the embodiment in the first place. And so we go through life, just in patterns and conditions and programs and cycles, not realizing that that's not the game. I mean, I think there are all these inherent lessons in life that show up like patterns and cycles and conditions and programs. But that's not the point of life, right? Those are just teaching you things. And so the idea is like, okay, let me put it this way. It was Socrates who said the unexamined life is not worth living. And so if it was once pondered, it is fabled, I would say, that there was a question among the gods as to where to hide the Holy Grail for humanity. And it's fabled that if the gods hid it in the depths of the oceans, that human beings would be sure to find it. And that if this Holy Grail of humanity, of our truth of our existence, if it was hid in the cosmos, then we would create technology to find it, to reach it. But if it is within us, if the answers are only within us, who dare take the journey?
Now, like, this is the thing. You bring up many sort of points in what you've said, like from like poverty being a mindset thing,
Yes.
like self-reflection of oneself, like basically sort of breaking like the cycle of many people's lives.
Yes.
Now, this is the thing, like there are going to be many a person out there who will go, how dare you? Poverty, a mindset thing, how dare you? A mind shift thing, how dare you? It's a case of, look, this is the way it always is, and like, you know what? And I fight this and fight that, and they'll come out with a whole array of things. But
yeah,
I would simply go, the examples of, okay, now someone's won the lottery, tens of millions of dollars or pounds, yen,
right.
currency, and you give it to them. One lump
and
sum.
they lose it.
It's like here today, gone tomorrow.
Gone tomorrow. Yeah.
I think with regards to that sort of mindset, mind shift, some people would say, to like sort of like go, okay, what is the relationship between us now and basically money in general? Is it a case of, do we understand how it works, how it can work for us, how it can sort of empower people going forward? Because many times I often hear it's this or it's that, but they don't actually go, this might be the root cause of it.
Okay, you're in my sweet spot now, because I did my TED talk on money consciousness, overcoming generational poverty. And I do much of my speaking, and I do a show about it on Clubhouse to break cycles of generational poverty. So let me put it to you this way, Miwa. Many of us are born into impoverished circumstances. Would you agree with that?
Well, a large percentage. Yes.
So let's just say many people that are poor or impoverished or don't have a lot, or they're living in scarcity, lack, or have a poverty mindset, are in a circumstance that looks impoverished, like there's not a lot of resources, or there's beliefs that there's not enough, or maybe that they're not worthy or good enough in some way. So this is what I think the root of it is that we can be born into such circumstances, into such families, communities, societies. But what we end up doing is we assume that as ourselves, right? We say, my community's poor. We say, I am poor. You say, this is broke. I am broke. Right. So we embody that circumstance as our own, not recognizing our true self-worth. So yes, there may be impoverished circumstances, but you as a being are infinitely wealthy. You are born with infinite potentials and infinite capacity to learn, to do, to be. And so if we can separate our circumstance from ourselves, then I believe we can begin to break the cycle. Because just because I'm born into a situation or I'm in a certain situation doesn't mean that it is me. It's kind of like the idea of someone saying, you did something stupid, but you're not a stupid person, right? That act was not, you weren't thinking, but it doesn't mean you are stupid, right? And so the idea is we name it ourselves. We call ourselves poor and broke. And that, I believe, has power. So I think when we recognize that there's power in our thoughts, there's power in our ideas, there's power in our language, there's power from those energies, those feelings that emanate from our heart. How powerful is love? There's also power in our beliefs. How powerful are people's beliefs? And so if you do not believe in yourself, if you believe you are poor, how powerful is that?
Let me see. I think it's Les Brown who says this. It was far harder for him to make $100,000 than $1 million. It's because the mindset gets reset, rewritten, or I should or mind shift, depending on how you want to look at it.
Right. What is possible for you is change. So most of the time we're living from a place of limitations.
Yes.
Right. Only this much, that much. We're living from a place of scarcity, often fear. But when you shift and you live from a place of potentials and possibilities and limitlessness, that's when things begin to change. It's about what you believe is possible for you. So if you drive down the street and you see a beautiful home, and you say, oh, that's for rich people, I could never live there. And so it is.
But sometimes I would say it comes down to this, because some people don't actually see the path, because they're not everyone's a pathfinder in this world. Some follow a path and they do it well, and great success comes from that, because they haven't seen that sort of shining example in either their community or whatnot, in the area they come from. They go, okay, how do
yeah, exactly. It can't be me. Yeah, I hear you on that. I mean, there are people that will tread their own path, and there are other people that need an example. They need proof that it's possible. That's up to the individual soul, like the individual person's, I would say, journey in life, or life journey, or life path. If that's what you require, then go seek it out. Prove yourself wrong.
No, I hear that.
Not everybody needs proof to know that what's possible for them. The way that I think about it is, if I can conceive it, if I can think it, if I can dream it, then it's possible.
Now, I've got to ask this, okay? Think it, dream it. So, when did the thought, when did the dream, when was that sort of seed planted for you to yes, embark on this dream as a speaker, author, podcast host, and hey, much more? When,
that's a good question. I don't know if there was a certain point when I knew that this is what my path would take.
Yeah.
But I was in a place before, as I came into my conscious work, as I began writing my first book. I've written 4 books now, but at the very beginning, when I was just saying, I'm going to write a book one day, I didn't know that I would, be a speaker, a podcaster. I didn't even know what a podcast was back then. There were many things that I couldn't have known. But what I did was I allowed myself to be open to all of it. And so sometimes, meanwhile, there are things that we can imagine. There's scenarios, usually from our past, or maybe we've seen it before. And we say, oh yeah, this is possible, that's possible. I think if that is where you are, that is fine. But leave one more option open. One more option. You say, I can expect these 3 things that I've seen happen before, or something even better. Leave that open, because that is a place of possibilities. We don't realize that when we are speaking, when we are thinking, when we are feeling, we are communicating with the universe. We are communicating with the embodiment of the universe that is you, that is me. We are all energies. We are all energies that are embodied. And I have a core belief, meanwhile, that when we are born into the universe, or the multiverse, however you want to think of it, if you can conceive it, that we are born into it for a very long time. And the thread that connects all of our existences is an energetic thread. And that links us to our ancestors forwards and backwards. And so imagine all the memory of past you, of past existence, of time and space that is in you right now, that you embody the energy of you now in this embodiment. Some people call it the spirit or soul, but it is you. It is the essence, meanwhile, that is you. That there's no other being on the planet exactly like you. Someone may look like you, or be your same age, or you could have a twin, but there is no one with the exact embodiment, the essence of you.
No, I agree. I agree with you with that. And this is the thing, when it comes to that essence which lives within us all,
Yes.
of maximizing that potential out of it. Okay, Mr. Rogers, back in the day, let's go with that. Okay, he goes, everyone's special. And you know what?
Yes.
I'll go, yes, everyone is special, but if they don't actually go out there and put themselves into places of discomfort where they can learn and grow and push themselves on a daily basis, working hard and trying to find that, you can say they're special and you can act like you're special.
But people don't believe they're special. People don't believe it. They don't believe they're special.
Well, I think it's a case of a lot of people haven't sort of started challenging themselves in life. They're quite happy with putting on the comfy shoes, their slippers. I'm in my pajamas.
The comfort zone. Yeah.
And and it's perfectly fine if they want to live that life. But when I hear sometimes people well, I wanted to do more and I wanted to get this and I see them sitting in a nice comfy chair, putting on the next like streaming show, and like,
that's not where you're going to find it.
Yeah,
that's right. I mean, so what you're getting to and what you're alluding to, Miwa, is that there are different types of growth, right? We have physical growth, and we like physically grow up in our body. We have emotional, we call it maturity. You know, we have growth in those ways. We have skills and things that we grow in. But not everybody embarks upon the inner journey, like in growing within themselves. Like what I would say is more of a spiritual introspective journey. They don't do that kind of growth. That I believe the very hardest look at ourselves is that inside look. Like some of us have a hard time looking in the mirror, but then there's even a deeper look into ourselves. And this is why I think that look is very difficult and challenging for people. Because when you begin the journey within, you realize that you are a creator, that you chose all of it. Many people don't want to take responsibility for their choices and what they've chosen in life. And when you do take charge of that, when you do own it, Miwa, you must take responsibility for what you're creating. So what are you putting out into the world? You must take responsibility for that. It's not somebody else's fault. It's not the government. It's not the economy. It's you. And so when each of us takes ownership of that, realizing that we are in fact the creators of our own lives. I look around at where I live and I chose all the furniture. I chose it. I chose what I eat. I choose my partners, my friends, my businesses. I choose all of it. And so, yes, I am responsible for my life. And I think many people don't want to look at that because then they must own it and then take responsibility for what they've created.
And when you, no doubt in your travels through life, you've most probably met people on the spectrum of people who have taken responsibility and not taken responsibility for their lives. What would you say the difference in outcomes you have typically found when someone sits on one side of the spectrum to the other?
Well, I think when you have someone that doesn't take responsibility, then it's always somebody else's fault, right? They're a victim. They feel powerless and disempowered. So that's what I noticed, like a feeling like of hopelessness, like they can't change anything because they don't realize that they're in the driver's seat. Now, on the other side, where someone does take charge of their life, does take ownership of what they are creating, it's not anybody else's fault, then they have the power to change their life. Because what comes with the power of creation is the power of change. And only you can do it. We cannot want for another person or desire for them. We can try, but they must want it for themselves. We can't say, hey, I want you to lose 25 pounds. They must want to do that for themselves. Only they can make the change. And we know that inherently. We can only take you can take a horse to the water, but you can't make them drink, right? And so the person that takes responsibility can take the drink. They can decide and make choices and they can change their life. And the idea, of course, is that you change it for the better. Then it becomes changing your life for the better, right? Then you're up to the game of you and doing you, which is very important. Then you can help others, right? You may have children and friends and family, then you can be that beacon for them. You can't change it for them. But you can stand in light. You can stand and say, people will begin asking, what did you do? You're different. This is different. You have different. So then you can change your community. You can help to change your society. And then enough of us that have stood up and took charge of our lives, accepted that we are creators of it, and are standing to change for the better. Collectively, we can change the world.
Changing the world.
For the better.
For
Only
the
better. Only positive surprises. Yeah.
That's a lofty goal indeed. A lofty goal indeed. But one worth fighting for, I say.
Yes, and it's possible.
Like
right?
Yeah, no, because like this is the thing. Like one of the things I think many of us always get caught up in is the negative talk we surround ourselves with.
Yeah.
You know, and it's one of those things where if you say it enough, you kind of manifest it into reality.
Yes.
And like the whole thing is like when you hear people say this, it's like, okay, I'm always clumsy. Oh, I'm not the smartest person. And it's like, I've done it again. It's like, right.
Exactly. And they declare it, right? We always declare it.
Well, it's a case of, they do declare it, but it's like they're declaring it to everyone who is around them as well. The people who could be potential allies or like things that could help and support them, it's like, they always screw this up. Oh, wait,
yeah.
Or right, they're clumsy.
Yeah.
And
we always say we teach people how to treat us, right? Yeah.
Because like this is the thing, it always strikes me. Like when I was at university, like I noticed this more in my second year of university, because university, and like, hey, you've been to a few yourself, so you've seen this on more than one occasion. Everyone gets together. They've traveled all over the country. They're talking away, and they project this person they kind of want to be. And when you get people from their hometown where they visit them, it's like, oh, wait a second, who are you? Or like they pretend to be, one of the things what made me laugh a lot was there was a performing arts section in our like university. And like, like you meet some of the guys who are like, hey, how you doing? You're like, football, rugby, sport. They're always like going, tough, rough and tumble. And then about 2-3 months later, it's like, oh yeah, that person's come out as gay. I was like, okay. I didn't notice that. I didn't know that was going to happen. Then I see there's sort of patterns happening again and again and again. And people think they are, how can I say, unique and special with those sort of things, but they are playing out the same game time and time again when they don't realize it, you know?
Okay. Firstly, what I think I took away from that was, I think there was a part of us that how we grew up and where we were, and then we evolve as a person. And maybe someone from our past doesn't know the new evolution of us, or is not familiar with it, or was not privileged to it. I mean, just think about your own self. I mean, think of you as a 18 or 20-year-old person at uni, and think of you now. If we are lucky, you've changed a lot. Oh. You've evolved and grown a lot. You've learned things. And so I think that's true for all of us, that there is an evolution of self. I think it's more worrisome if there is not.
Yeah, I think one of my sort of personal nightmares would be if I didn't see someone for about 10 years and they meet me and they go, oh, you haven't changed a bit.
Changed a bit. Yeah. To me, that.
Have a look of the phone. No, you haven't changed a bit. No, you're going, what, you mean physically? No, your whole personality, your life. It's like you are exactly the same person I met you back then.
Yeah.
You know, it's like
and that's very disappointing.
Okay.
I think so. I think there are some qualities and traits and characteristics that you want to hold, particularly if they're very high vibrational ones. Like, if you have integrity, if you're an honest person or whatever, you're reliable and trustworthy. Like, you don't want to become less trustworthy, or there's some things that you'll some core
your core
things.
principles, foundation. Yeah.
It's like, are you a good person or not?
Mm-hmm.
But then there are other things, like I believe it's very good for our thoughts. Maybe I used to be really into something and now I'm not. I have a 12-year-old, and it's like every year it's like he used to be into this and now it's like, oh, that's old school, right? That's no more. That's not cool anymore, mommy. And I said, hey, that's what we also do as adults. We continue that evolution of self. We have experiences, we grow, we learn things, and then we do change. And so I think when we are stagnant and you look back in 25 years and that person hasn't changed a bit, you feel like that's not a compliment. Like you're like, you almost would call them stuck.
Yeah.
Like they're stuck in their rut, or their old ways, or they're very rigid, or they won't budge. Who wants that?
Not like this.
You want to, be able to ebb and flow. I think there's nothing higher, like intellectually, than to change what you believe, what you thought, because now there's something new that shows you something different, and you're open to it. You're open to that. I think when you stagnate and you're stuck and it's just dogmatic and you do it because you've always done it this way, then there's no evolution of self. You don't evolve anymore.
I do think when you get older, as time goes by, because of the sort of lack of contact with new people you talk to, that you do like slow somewhat, and you do sort of like quote unquote get set in your ways, and like through the sort of power of conversation with other people along your life, meeting new people, that's how you like manage to still like grow and develop as a person and get new lessons on a daily basis. Because look, I've said this before, I'll say it again. When you're in your like late teens and your 20s and you are, we're going to go out tonight, we are legion, and you just turn and you hear this, and away you go. In your mid 20s, you like go, we are legion, and you turn around and go, oh. In your 30s, you go, we are legion. Oh, okay. There's less of us. And like as each decade goes on, when you like, if you're in your 40s and you go, we are legion, it's like, no, we're a crowd, which go out. So you kind of don't have these opportunities to have these conversations. You kind of have less opportunity to meet new people out there. Look, you've got a 12-year-old son, is that right? Mm-hmm. And like with him being there, it's like, okay, you're going to like, if you're going to go out sometimes, it's going to be with the local PTA, and like you're meeting all these parents, which you had kids just at the same time, but not necessarily going to get that sort of unique conversation you would normally get before.
Well, I would have to disagree. I mean, I think that's a potential. Yeah. I think that's a potential, but you can always engage higher thought, and read and learn things, and like listen to podcasts and listen, you can always learn. I mean, you may not always be going to the club, or hanging out like you used to in university, but you can do there are other enriching things, and ways to meet people. I meet people all the time.
Yeah,
And
but
so I'm 50, you know, I feel like my connections and my keep growing and growing and growing and growing.
I hear that, and I love your energy for it and everything like this. But like, this is the thing, you are a highly driven, like, next level thinking lady. And like, this is the thing, you are not what I would say the vast majority of people are.
Mm-hmm.
You are out of, like, you are not, I would say, more on the fringe of things rather than being in the whole mix of things. Because look, you go, yeah, but there are other, like, you, yeah, there is. I agree with you. There are countless ways you can learn new things, but
Right.
the vast majority of people will never do it. They need, like, they
Mm-hmm.
needed that thing when they were younger to, like, sometimes just be forced into it. Oh yeah, I was out one night. I was out one night, or I was out during the day, and yeah, because of X, Y, and Z person, they dragged me to this place, and like, yeah, I learned something. Those people drop off, and it's like, yeah, where are they now? It's like, yeah, I've just been chilling at home. I just want to, tired, don't need to go out, leave me alone. And like, you know what I mean? But you are very much on the fringe of things. And like, you know what? I would love it if the world, you were not the fringe. You were the majority, like, you know what I mean? The majority of
Yeah.
people, rather than being of the minority of the fringe, you know? That's what I'm saying.
I think the fringe has a different meaning in the US than it does in the UK.
Oh, really? That? Oh,
I think I understand. It's like, yeah,
or I should say
not
outlier.
being the average, not the average person, or not, I don't live an average life. Yeah, that's true. That is very true.
Yeah. So that's, you know what I mean? That's what I'm just saying. That, and that's the only reason why I push back on you on that, because that is the way we're having this conversation, the way, like, you come across, that's what you are. And the majority of people are not that. And that's the only reason why I say this. Yeah.
Okay, then I'll proudly hold the fringe. I'll be on the fringe.
Okay, that's good. Now, I have to ask, look, being on the fringe and all of this. So, yeah, speaking, how on earth did you get into that? Because, you know what, becoming a speaker, it's like, okay, you like waking up one day, you know what, I'm going to become a speaker. It's like, is it that simple, or is there a little bit?
Oh no. Well, I think it's like anything. It's a skill. I would say that maybe speaking is more natural for me. I've always been described as being a well-spoken person, but as far as like being able to speak on stages, that is a skill, and that's something I had to learn. And I had to, just like many people, I had to overcome stage fright. You know, speaking in front of people, and so I trained. I trained to become a speaker, and so I've invested a great deal of resources and time and coaches and Toastmasters, and I've done the work to become a speaker, and I do it in many aspects of my life. I mean, in many ways, while you are a speaker, you have a podcast, and it's a broadcasting platform, it's a speaking platform, and so I have a show called the Money Consciousness Show, and I speak every week to help people transition out of generational poverty, and, break cycles of generational poverty. I did my TED talk on money consciousness, overcoming generational poverty. I've done other speaking engagements in the United States and Egypt and India. I have a speaking engagement in a couple of weeks for a governmental organization. And so I do speaking as part of my, I guess, gift, like, what I was given. That everybody has gifts, right? And I think we don't all open them. And so I opened the speaking gift, and I nourished it, and now I speak, for audiences, schools, organizations, corporations. And so No, it wasn't something that I just woke up one day doing. It felt like a very natural extension of me. It was just something that early on I didn't develop. I didn't develop the skill of it when I was training as a surgeon. And I didn't develop the skill of speaking when I went to business school and was a healthcare entrepreneur. I mean, I began, but it wasn't, I didn't develop this until I wanted to desperately, I really wanted to do a TED Talk because I felt that I had something, an idea worth sharing, an idea worth spreading. And that's the essence of it. Do you have something that you believe could benefit humanity? And I believed that I had something to say that could benefit humanity. Yeah. And so I trained to say it. I trained myself, and many other people helped me to be able to say that, to be able to deliver a TED. And it's a structured talk. It's not like we're doing right here. It has parameters, and it is actually performed. It is like orchestrated. And so I had to learn to do that. And now that I've taken a TED, I can do other types of stages that are less structured. But it is certainly a skill, but I believe it's in alignment with what I am to share with humanity. Some people will, I'm an energy healer. I had experienced a conscious awakening in 2012, which had me leaving outside of my body. That was my awakened experience. And when I came back, I felt energy emanating from me. Like some people call it chi. Mm-hmm. And I knew nothing about it. I just felt different. And part of my speaking, if you will, is also to people feel that they're spoken into. Or that's the feedback that I get, that I speak into people. And so I've taken stages where people feel an energetic shift inside of them. Because I tell you, Miwa, our language, it's a vibration. If you look at the spoken word or a song or, singing, that there's a waveform that represents our language. And that carries a frequency, carries a vibration. And so I say that when I speak to audiences, it is not just heard, it is felt. And I believe that another gift is for me is energy transformation. And so when I speak, it's energetic. There's an energetic healing in my words that has the ability to transform emotions like feelings. And so it's just part, I believe it all ties in. It's all part of the packages that I received as a being on the planet. And later in life, I opened them up. I didn't open them up early, but I opened them up later in life.
Right. Now, I am curious, what was the sort of biggest sort of lesson you learned when you first sort of stepped on stage as a speaker?
A lesson? Well, I had heard anecdotally that people go blank on stage. And I didn't know what that was. And I remember I was very curious about, I was like, oh, like the deer in headlights kind of like stop, like words cannot come out. And so that happened to me.
Oh no.
And so I began to understand that there's a lot more. I say there's something to everything, and there's certainly something to be able to speak. And not everybody, it's not for everyone. It's not everybody's thing. But if you want to play the game of being a speaker, there are things that you're going to overcome. And that blanking like that, it's almost like zoning out at a very critical point. Nobody wants that to happen, but it's part of it. It's part of it's like developing yourself over that kind of thing. It's there's all sorts of I would say lessons, there's all sorts of hurdles, there's all sorts of levels of it. And when you embark upon it, you get to play the game, and go through all the steps, all the levels of it.
I hear you, because I can, it's one of those things, you go blank. If you if someone, it's like when astronauts have got all of their gear on and you go, oh, like one of the games they like playing on each other is like, hey, don't you have an itchy nose?
Yeah, exactly. Or you got to go to the bathroom, or
it's like going, no, no. And no matter how hard you try to fight it, you see, just touch nose. There you go. So yeah. But like to go, don't go blank. Is that it's there. Oh no.
It's a thing. It's a thing. Yeah, it's a thing.
How did you manage to get out of that? Did you just like, okay?
So because it's such a common thing, and I think it's also true for stage performers.
Yeah.
I think anybody that does that kind of stuff, is there are ways to overcome it, and so, what I do find is that humans are pretty generous. I mean, many people will be scared to death just staying in your place on stage, and they know that. And so they're generally very forgiving, and so there are things that you can do to, trigger your, help yourself to learn. There's all sorts of stuff in that realm of remembering. And then there's also manners of being. I just call it manners of being. Sometimes it's okay to just take a pause. It's okay to say, you know what, I lost my train of thought, let me come back to this, and so people are forgiving. And I think probably the hardest person to forgive is yourself, right? We beat ourselves up over stuff like that. But I think, through my conscious journey, I've stopped doing that so much, being so hard on myself. I think we don't allow ourselves enough grace on this life journey.
I hear that. And like, this is the thing, I think with all the stuff you've been doing, it's like led to have, like, would you say it's led to a realm of growth that you didn't actually expect it to? Or is it just a case of you were like, hey, I expect to be here, and like you're like, I did it? Or it's like, oh my Lord, how the heck am I here?
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, I think when you're playing the game of possibilities and potentials, when you're allowing life to unfold.
Yeah.
There are many lessons in the journey of allowing. But when you're playing that game, anything can happen. Anything is possible. And so it's really allowing yourself to receive it. I think some people are afraid of success. They're afraid of having their dreams come true. And so I think it's getting out of your own way and allowing it, just, taking it all, being open to it all, Yeah.
The reason why I asked that question is because you had a career where everything was set, structured, formed. You knew if you just did this residency for X amount of time, you will end up with this. And then if you kept a good record and like this, you will end up here. And basically one step after the other.
Right.
And to all of it, and then to go, nah.
Yeah.
Just going, and you head in a direction.
It's an uncharted path. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not that, not everybody has a stomach for it. Okay. Let me put it like that. There's one thing about a path already taken. is that often there's a guidebook, there's directions, there's instructions, there's textbooks, there's, fields of study around it. But when you take the uncharted path, then a lot of the discovery is self. You're going to learn it on your own. It's kind of like parenting. People say there's no guidebook to parenting. You're like, you would think with all the billions of peoples, we'd have it down, but we don't, because there's so many variables, right? There's so many variables in raising a human being. And so I think the same thing with the uncharted path. There's so many variables. And what's interesting is everything is designed to teach you something. So everything you encounter is designed to move you forward. But what happens is sometimes we encounter what we can perceive as an obstacle and we quit. We get discouraged or we don't feel strong enough. But actually overcoming, you can't go around it. You can't ignore it. You can't not do whatever it is you are to do. Mm-hmm. You must go through it. And sometimes those obstacles look like fear. Sometimes those obstacles are about forgiveness. Sometimes there are obstacles that address your self-worth, your insecurities, your beliefs, even what you believe to be true about yourself. So those are all like the challenges of the uncharted path. And many of us feel too afraid, truly believe that our hearts will break if we dare go through those. I believe they're energetic barriers. It's you. The only person that's in the way is you. And it's how do we get out of our own way? And it's going through all this stuff that we've held inside of ourselves, sometimes for an eternity.
I hear that. No, absolutely. No, I agree with that sentiment. Yeah. No, seriously. No, because,
some physical, but lots of spiritual, emotional stuff.
Yeah. No,
some physical barriers, but
absolutely.
It's mostly within you.
Absolutely. Because this is the thing. Everyone talks about fear of failure. You hear everyone go, fear of failure, fear of failure, fear of failure. But when it comes to sort of fear of success, it's if everything goes right, if you fulfilled every single dream, every single goal you've had,
right?
What does that look like? Who are you then? Because the amount of times I've heard stories about sporting personalities, adventurers, and they achieve their goal, they get to the top of whatever mountain or whatever thing they're trying to achieve. And then the next, that moment of triumph, then the next morning, it's
now what?
What do I do now?
Where
do I go? What is my drive? What is my purpose? And then you see people spiral.
Right.
Into all manner of things, depression, craziness, and trying
Substance
to find that
abuse,
next thing. Yeah, absolutely. But to sort of have a sort of an infinite goal, to give them that sort of infinite drive, it's not really sort of discussed. It's not really sort of focused on as much in society as a whole, wherever you are in the world. It's either you fail, and some people might consider succeeding, but there isn't okay, how do you if you succeed, how do you keep going? If you succeed, how do you keep driving forward? If you succeed, what will be that next thing to keep you present in the moment to okay.
All right. Can I take a stab at this one?
Oh yeah, please do. Can I take a stab at this one? You're going, oh yeah, I'm ready. Come on. I can see it. Come on. Let's go. Yeah, baby.
So meanwhile, I think this goes back to something that we discussed early on. when I was doing surgery, and then I realized that it wasn't like, we talked about reaching the mountaintop and you see it, and then you're like, oh no, I'm not fulfilled, right? What all this that I was pursuing, it doesn't actualize me, right? I'm not whole inside myself yet. And so I think what tends to happen is that we can fall into depression because we're like, I worked so hard, I did all this, and then I get to the summit, I get to the top of the mountain, and it's like almost like a letdown. You're like, okay, so now what? I'm here, and what you're left with is now I believe it's the journey within, that alchemist journey. And that's what I went back to when I talked about the Holy Grail, about when we have to look within ourselves, who dare take that journey? Yeah, you'll have people that will scale every mountain on the planet, try to, go to, into the expanse of space, but they will not take the journey within themselves to figure out what that is that's still unfulfilled. Why would you fall into a cycle of sadness, depression, suicidal ideation when you've reached that ultimate life goal, or that whatever, achieve that thing? Why do you spiral out on drugs and numb yourself with all sorts of intoxication? And I think it's because it's that last, like that final horizon, that last piece is the journey into you. It's that journey into self. And that's the journey very few dare take. Because what it ends up doing, meanwhile, is it will ask of you to dismantle all that you think you are. That all the labels, all the money, all the associate, all that stuff, it will begin to crumble. It asks you to go back to the core, to the essence of you. And when you go back down to that, you recognize, you're like, wait a second, I'm just pure energy. Maybe you recognize that all this has been an illusion. And so you begin to let go of all this. And some people hold really tight to their labels and their degrees and their money and their stuff. Because that is how they feel secure. And when all that is gone, when all that you realize doesn't matter, that the real journey in this life has been that introspective one to find yourself, many people don't dare take the journey. They're too afraid to see and to, I think it is, they don't want to feel it. There's something that's been pinging them and pinging them and pinging them and driving them and driving them. And all the efforts are on the outside. It's looking outside of ourselves to stop the ping, to stop that, whatever that is. But the only way is to go inside. And that energy, that pinging, it has to be transformed. It follows the very first law of thermodynamics that all energy on the planet follows. And that is the law of conservation. That energy is not created nor destroyed. It must be transformed. So whatever it is that subconsciously, unconsciously, whatever has been driving the bus, that has been having you do this and that energy must be finally transformed. And then you are free. You are free. And so this is what I believe life transformation is. This is what we were actually here for. Many of us just dare not take that inner journey.
The inner journey within, the whispers in the
Mhm.
dark. So many things, so many things. I, I have to ask, like, just taking a slight sort of change, a slight pivot. Like, what made you decide to launch your own podcast?
The Be Conscious podcast came about. It was actually part of my speaking platform because I have lots of thoughts, I guess.
No.
I just thought of it.
Lots of thoughts. Oh, Susan, no.
You know, I think people that launch podcasts feel like they have something to say or to share. And I do too. And I was looking, as I was looking for more conscious content, I couldn't find a lot of it. And so I created it myself. And so I don't know. I think I have podcast downloads from over 17 countries. And I know that's not a ton, but there are people around the world that are hungry for it, for this conversation that you and I are having today.
Right.
And so I think that there's a place for it. And, why not me? What is it, Gandhi? Be the change that you want to see in the world?
Indeed, indeed. Now, my last question before we separate our lovely ways, but yeah, where do you want to see this journey of yours, this journey of consciousness, this journey of energy lead you or take you in the near future?
Well, I believe that when we take the journey within, it is about our ascension journey. I mentioned to you that I believe that when we are born into the universe, we are born into it for a very long time, and that we incur many embodiments as lessons to mature our eternal soul, our energy, the essence of us. And so I believe this journey within, when you begin to transform and dismantle all the constructs, the conditions, the programs of this life and past lives, perhaps, then you can make your ascension. And what does that mean? That so we all have to die off this planet. We know that.
No, not me. No. But thank you. I'm going to be the first person to escape life without dying. Thank you very much.
But meanwhile, where do you go next? Where do we go next? And I think none of us knows the answer to that. And so I think to myself, well, if I do what I'm to do during this incarnation, while I'm in this embodiment, then maybe where I go next is not so hard. It's not so arduous. The journey not so difficult. I don't know. Maybe I get to, instead of cycling through fears and insecurities and lack, I can create greater things. I believe it is so we can make our ascension. So when we die off the planet, it's not an if, it's a when, that where that energy of you goes next. The next time you open your whatever eyes, whatever they're going to look like in your next incarnation, whatever embodiment you're going to take, you're like, this place is awesome. You're like, you get to have a different, a higher vibrational experience. That's what I believe this is about. And so that is what's next for me. When I came into my conscious awakening, I knew that it was my last life in this type of embodiment and this type of dimensional space. This is a very dense, energetic matrix of Earth. We're confined by many constructs of time, of money, of race, religion, of gender, of all sorts of programs, overcoming fears, insecurities. We are tasked with forgiveness and patience and to release judgment. These are heavy things to do on this planet. We're dense beings. And so I'm doing this so my soul can take flight. So whatever it is next, whatever dimensional space I land in next, the energy, the essence of me lands in next, that it's a higher vibrational place than this magnificent Earth. I call it Earth School. Earth School is like a cosmic kindergarten, but it is like hard, like it's tenuous, like it's formidable. And so this has been a challenging existence. And if I have anything to say about it, which I believe I do, I'd rather not do it again. I'll just say that. And the next place I go, you know, hopefully they'll be higher, just different lessons, different things that I will experience as an energetic being in whatever embodiment that I am. And then I'll learn those things. Mm. And so that's what I think we're all doing, but I think we're doing it unconsciously. And I think we kind of cycle back and get born again and born again and born again. And we don't realize that we've been here 1,000 times and we just can't get over some stuff. And so I'm like, let's cut the bullshit. I'm like, get out of here. You know, I want to graduate kindergarten.
Graduate Earth School. Okay.
I want to graduate Earth School. Yeah.
But what I've got to say is I wish you learn all your lessons in this life. So you'll be so much wiser in the next.
Thank you.
There you go. There you go. All right, Susan, we have come to the end of our time. And I'd like to say thank you for coming on today. You have been wonderful. You've been brilliant. You've been outstanding. Can you let the people out there know how they can find you out in these interwebs, please?
Of course. You can find me at susannicholas.org. That's www.susannicholas.org. You can find me on Clubhouse at Susan Nicholas MD, where I host the Money Consciousness Show each Wednesday for people that are breaking cycles of generational poverty. You can find me on Instagram at Conscious Susan. You can find me on LinkedIn at Susan Nicholas MD. And that's pretty much like the social channels that I'm on. My books are available on Amazon. I'm an author of 4 books, The Duality of Being, and a conscious children's series, which I'm looking to make into an animated children's series. My first title is 2 Parts of Me, I'm More Than My Body. My second title is The Death of Cupcake, for children that experience loss while they're still children. And my third children's title will be released the end of this year. It's called Poor Max Breaks the Cycle of Generational Poverty.
Outstanding. All of this information will be in the show notes, in the description. So yeah, click away, buy the books, yes, connect with her, and see how it goes. But I'd like to say this to you, my friends, my life warriors who have stuck with us till the end of this show. I'd like to say thank you for your time today. Please stay well, stay safe, be awesome, be excellent, be fantastic. Be all the positive bees you can be in this world and then some. Have a great day, guys. Yes. Peace. And we are...